Welcome to the Crypto Campfire.
They know the Krabby Patty secret recipe, Mitch and the Professor, featuring special guest Jonathan Dunsmoor.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Crypto Campfire podcast. This is the Professor.
And Mitch.
And today we're going to be talking with Jonathan C. Dunsmoor. He's a securities attorney at Dunsmoor Law. But before we start talking to Jonathan, let's grab that crypto news from the Crypto Gent.
Thanks, Professor. Hello, Crypto Campfire listeners, and welcome to the Crypto Currency News in a Flash with the Crypto Gent. South Korea considers 20% crypto income tax. Australian regulator gives green light to app-based retail Bitcoin fund. London-listed Argo blockchain reports tenfold increase in Bitcoin mining revenue in 2019, and Bitfinex investors crypto lending startup posts $2.3 million in 2019 revenue. That's the cryptocurrency news in a flash with the Crypto Gent. And it's back to you, Professor.
Thanks a lot, Crypto Gent. Samish, are you recovered from the holidays yet?
I have. I am ready to take on the new year. There's no question. I'm ready to get these podcasts rolling. I'm ready to start shaking and baking. Oh, yeah.
Shaking and baking.
Shaking and baking, baby. Shaking and baking. I'm ready.
You know, I'm like half ready. You know, I'm mentally 100% ready, but I physically have not recovered yet, which is funny because to say you haven't physically recovered from 2 weeks of doing nothing makes no sense. But for some reason, I just don't have my shit together.
That's all right. We'll get there.
Exactly. So, Jonathan, you and I and Mitch all kind of sort of met happenstance at CIS in Los Angeles back in October. That was a good time.
It was.
The funny story for those listening, in case you didn't happen to see it when we went live on YouTube, we were actually just setting up at Crypto Invest Summit in Los Angeles, and we were doing a test stream, like just to see if our stuff is even working, because we had never set up a live stream like that before. So we're set that up. We're sitting there doing the test, and all of a sudden Jonathan comes walking up, and we're like, well, hell, let's just jump on a live stream right now. You're standing here. We're live streaming. Let's do it. And it was a good time, but we didn't get to talk for very long. So we're definitely excited to get a little bit deeper and talk to you about the legal side of crypto and a few other things. So just in the typical campfire style, why don't we start with how you got into crypto and what got you hooked on it?
That's a good question. I've kind of become this weird, I had this initial experience. I put my toe in the water back in the day, probably 2011, 2012. Bought a little Bitcoin, lost a bunch of Bitcoin because, wallets and private keys and all that other kind of fun stuff. It became one of those things that was always an interest to me. I have an old Facebook message where we were asking who we thought our brightest finance guy was of, should we invest in this stuff and should we all put together some money and do a little mining operation? This was around 2013. And his answer was a resounding no. And so we don't like that guy anymore, but no, he's a good guy. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, how I guess I got reintroduced to it or kind of brought the legal side into it was 2016. If everybody can remember back that far, I had clients kind of coming in and saying, hey, we're looking at raising money. We want to do this thing called ICOs and all this other stuff. And me as a securities attorney who worked with startups, I was kind of freaking the hell out because I knew this was a security offering. And, we told our clients this is not something we can do, unfortunately, given the regulations, given everything that's going on. And I have to admit, I was kind of closed-minded because I had one client who kind of pushed me on it and been like, well, how would it work? And I was like, damn, that's a really good question. Considering our capital markets are, for the most part, really broken and the SEC is starting to notice that, as well as everyone else, that kind of made me take the step back and look and see, okay, how would this work? How would ownership work on a blockchain? What would that look like? What would verification look like? What would trading look like? What would all these different things look like? And I was like, you know what? This is really, this really has some legs. I'm familiar enough with the technology to be dangerous. I know that the current technology needs to be upgraded. This sounds like something we should run with. And so kind of from there, it's been growing and expanding, and we've been working with companies all over the world, trying to figure out either their projects and bringing them to the U.S. or finding U.S. investors. Or right now we're dealing with a lot of regulatory issues. So we're clearing up, the SEC subpoenas or CFT subpoenas, FINRA issues, all these kind of fun things that have now kind of bled into the traditional capital markets using blockchain. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Funny how it all just kind of starts somewhere and spirals, right?
Right. It's just a nosedive in some ways. Like, it's just crazy how all this kind of happened.
Yeah, and it's one of those spaces that no matter what industry you're experienced in or come from or even interested in, you can start down a crypto path of however you get into crypto and end up in your industry, but still in crypto. Like, it's kind of a cool thing because it spans so far.
It really does. And that's one of the things I like about crypto is that it seems to be one of those situations where as soon as someone learns about it, they're like, oh, this is cool, right? Like, it's like,
yep.
You guys are old enough that when you were teaching people how to use Wi-Fi, right? You're like, this is Wi-Fi enabled. You're like, whoa, this is crazy. How am I on the internet with no cords?
Right. It's great.
So, like, that's kind of the closest relation I can find to it.
That's a really good one though, because back in high school, I was running a computer tech business and building computers and setting up networks and stuff. And that was like the height of when Wi-Fi was starting to really get good. Like, wireless LAN had just come out, and it was just so awesome. And people were finally being able to like have one router that went to your whole 3-story house, and it was all actually working.
Yeah.
And people were starting to become like, it's actually convenient finally, and it blows people's minds. And crypto is starting to get there. Like, we still have a long way to go in the abstraction of the interfaces, but we are getting really close. Like, we actually have wallets that are simple and easy to use without any knowledge of what a private key even is. We already have some of this stuff, and it just needs to be polished a little bit more, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I really think we are. And I'm hoping, I was just talking to someone else about this, that we've got to get payments figured out. That's kind of what we all got into this for some reason. And the fact that we don't have, not necessarily a cash app, but, for the most part, especially on the B2B side, there is no de facto winner. And, if we're going to take on people like Visa and all these other things, the industry has to move far along for that.
Well, I agree. And I mean, that brings up the question, and this is, I know my answer, but is crypto a currency or is it a speculative instrument to you?
I mean, it really depends, right? If you're using it as Bitcoin, well, then it's a currency, for the most part, right? It becomes this kind of weird speculative instrument if it's so decentralized and so, uncontrollable. And don't get me wrong, parts of Bitcoin are, but we do realize we still have to mine this stuff, right?
Sure.
And so once it becomes, so just kind of out of whack or in any form or fashion, right? Whether it's, kind of a mining operation or it's something where it's so centralized or so, in theory, decentralized, meaning that it's so distributed across all of these different machines that, we don't really know how it works anymore, but we just know it works. That's where, the name of the game could change. And from a securities attorney perspective, we can't really have that happen, especially for things that, actually kind of quote unquote matter. So stocks, bonds, debt instruments, all these other kind of things can't be that speculative. But when it becomes something that is a stable kind of asset, like these stable coins all over the place that nobody really uses, those are kind of one of the things that, we know it's a currency. We need to treat it like a currency. We don't need to tax it. We don't need to do all this other kind of dumb things that some of these states and countries are looking at doing. Like, we need to be responsible civic citizens. And that's where I think the rubber meets the road, because most people can understand, okay, if I just act like this is a digital dollar, tax it as a digital dollar. But when you start getting into the speculation, that's when the tax man goes, wait a second, you're making money now. I want some of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it's a currency. Okay, so let's take that one step further. The American dollar has a level of volatility, just not drastic, right? I mean, it's gone up and down in value, and mostly down in value over the years. So if for some reason, and this is a hypothetical question, if for some reason the American dollar went up in value from, say, let's say in current today's standards, it's a dollar's valued at 60 cents realistically due to inflation. If it goes up to 85 cents, are we going to see a tax on that increase in value as people that hold dollars in our bank accounts?
No, you're not taxed on your dollars that are increasing or decreasing.
Right. So if cryptocurrencies are being used as such currencies, then the only taxation in my mind should be on the transfer of that asset to make a purchase. So like almost like a tax, not a, I want to say like what am I looking for here? A use tax or a sales tax. There we go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I have beef with. Like I think Bitcoin is so decentralized that it should be just treated as a currency. Like the fact that the government wants to tax it is just kind of ridiculous. Like let these people have their money, especially when it comes to trading. Like anybody who does any type of trading, especially on scale, knows that your margins are basically razor thin unless you're just doing a long-term hold plan, and that gets ridiculous at some point. You know what I mean? And in order to do that kind of accounting, especially on a blockchain, while it should be simpler, it's much more complicated because most CPAs don't have an idea of what the hell a Bitcoin is, even though, they know what it may theoretically be, but they don't know what the back end mechanisms of it looks like. If I buy, 10 Bitcoin, that order may be filled, 7 different ways. And so if that's what, occurs, assuming that I don't have a limit price or whatever, like, there's just so many hurdles to it that it's much easier if we just keep it simple and focus on, nobody controls Bitcoin. Even if we look at the mining operations, and in theory, you can throttle things up and throttle them down. That's not really, quote unquote, controlling it, right?
No, it's not, right.
Yeah. So there's no real centralization of it. There's no real way to, I don't know, shut it off or deflate it enough. We've got some whales out there, and then, so in theory, there's some really mega whale kind of things, but it's one of those things where, unfortunately, or fortunately, we're going to be able to eventually kind of track everybody down. And when that kind of happens, it's going to be one of those situations where, unless it's somebody who's, not necessarily front running the market, and we know that there's a bunch of market manipulation issues within the crypto space, it's not something that I believe, at least in my libertarian mind, like the government should even worry with right now, because it's not something where, how do I say this nicely? It's not something the government should worry about because it doesn't really matter as much right now. And so in order for it to evolve, we need for it to be kind of played with. We need for businesses to be readily able to accept Bitcoin, knowing that if Bitcoin crashes, they're not going to have to worry about all these, tax losses and how to calculate that into their prices and all this other kind of stuff. It needs to be something where we're able actually to use this and see how this works in order to kind of facilitate these larger and hopefully more prosperous kind of next level solutions. Bitcoin for itself is exceptionally slow. It is exceptionally, how do I say this? It's skewed in a lot of ways. There's a lot of really good things about Bitcoin, but there's a really lot of things looking back. You can see that this was, Gen 1 technology. And I think anybody who kind of appreciates that can see that this is more of a toy of experimentality than it is an actual kind of, I'm going to go pay my, tank of gas with Bitcoin. Like, no, but it'd be cool to be able to buy things with Bitcoin on the regular. It'd be cool if you could go to Best Buy and go buy a brand new TV and, cash out that way, but you can't. There's no major retailers that readily accept all of these cryptocurrencies en masse. And don't get me wrong, Gemini and some other guys are really kind of pushing that stuff out there, but I have yet to see any of these kind of things done on scale.
You can buy a car with it. There's a few Ford dealerships in the Northeast and one in automotive dealership down in Oklahoma that you can actually purchase with.
Oh yeah, there's for major purchases. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well,
and they also take it for service. So like if you go in to have your car serviced, they accept it as payment because it's, it's a currency, and they've set it up to ways where when the transaction is actually done, they are given cash and not necessarily the actual crypto. So they don't have to deal with the volatility of the market, which helps, give them a little bit of security that I'm not going to sell this for 0.05 Bitcoin and then all of a sudden Bitcoin drops in value, so I just lost money. But because it automatically transacts in cash to them, so however they set it up, then they don't have that volatility we worry with. As well as like with a Visa transaction, you got within 6 months, anytime in that 6 months, that transaction can be nullified by the consumer, and the merchant's out the money. So that equates to a lot of loss for them.
But here's my biggest issue, and one of the reasons that I think we should be playing with Bitcoin and large purchases, fine, whatever, right? But so I'm going to this conference, massive adoption or whatever, in Memphis. They have this.
I'm
travel,
going there too.
Yeah, Jacob. They have this great little travel package for $500, right? But it's $497. So I sent Jacob, I think like $508, right? Because not only between the time that I sent the money, right, but because of I was worried about, well, I don't want to send them, I don't want to shortchange him, right? Because that's messed up. But also because I also, I want to pay the bill. Like I sent the money, and by the time it gets to him, I think it's like, because everything's rising today because we just went to war. It's up a couple bucks. Now, am I going to request a refund? No, that's, for the most part, ridiculous. Is he going to send back the refund? Is he going to be like, oh, you got an extra couple dollars here? Probably not. Like it's not worth it for either one of us. I mean, maybe if, the accounting is something that they're really trying to monitor or something, who knows? But for, when you talk about really large deals, like if I'm going to go buy a $4 million house, right, I'm going to use Bitcoin. If there's even a slight bump in the market or decrease in the market by the time that transaction processes, guess what? We're going to have to do another transaction. And then it's going to have to be down to, okay, what does this mean? Where are we? How much is left? You just want to pay in cash because we need stability, right? That's why stablecoins are a thing. We realize that you don't want to process your hamburger or buy your TV or go pay for your car and realize, okay, whoever made the deal just got either less or more than they were supposed to get. That's not how business is conducted, at least successfully, right?
Exactly.
Stability is absolutely critical, and stable coins are definitely going to help that. And I think one of the big things, though, as far as onboarding payments to retailers is going to be just the actual payment processing companies themselves. Because, I mean, yeah, sure, like if you're sending Bitcoin one address to another, just as two guys buying a ticket to massive adoption or whatever, you're going to have that variation because you're just doing it the manual way. But now if you're a retailer and you're accepting crypto through your payment processor who auto converts that to USD as soon as the payment is processed, that doesn't matter to you because you get $25, regardless of what Bitcoin does during the time that transaction is being processed. Now, obviously, when you start scaling that up, you start running into problems because as soon as you have all the retailers that, are ready to do this, and these massive retailers are now taking crypto and you're auto converting it to USD for them, now the payment processors are onboarding that risk. And that's okay on a small scale. But as soon as you're dealing with massive transactions and huge scale quantities of retailers, that becomes a big issue. And until the stable coins actually can be trusted to be stable, and we find maybe some better mechanisms of building stable coins, because we're still at stage one with stable coins too, let's be honest. Once we can get there, then it's a lot easier and there's a lot less risk for payment processors and there's a lot less risk for merchants, and it's going to look a lot better. But I still think we're good 5 to 10 years out on that.
I hope not. If we're 5 to 10 years out, we're all screwed.
Right.
It would be beautiful to think that we're going to have a perfect solution in 2 to 3 years, but we got to be realistic here. Like, this is still a long-term thing. Getting retailers to adopt a whole brand new form of technology, there's a lot that has to go into this.
I don't think it's 5 years out, to be honest with you. With as fast as the way things happen anymore and as exponentially as things happen anymore, I don't think we're 5 years out. I think we're closer to 2, but that's my opinion.
Then again, of course, what's our definition of what we're trying to reach?
Yeah.
Are we talking full mass adoption, or are we just talking payment processors, major payment processors taking it on?
I think that it's a matter of, you said in converting it to USD, right? Or converting it to dollars. Like therein lies the hitch, right? If you're a payment processor or you're a merchant who's taking it through your payment processor and you're having to convert it to USD because that's what you feel is safe, right? Then we're kind of foregoing the transactional value of Bitcoin, and we're simply just transacting, right? You're giving me something of value for
totally. But I mean, it's a transitional period, right? We're still like you say, Gen 1. Like we're at the base level of this, and so there's going to be a long process of working from a trusted dollar system that we've built for however many years now into some new thing that most people who are alive right now, of age to transact normally in the day-to-day world, cannot even comprehend. We've got a long ways to go. So it's just that's kind of why I say, talking about the USD, that's going to be the thing. Like if it's going to be pegged to the dollar, whether it's a stable coin or a Bitcoin, for quite a while.
Guys, we all grew up. Everybody on this podcast grew up with PayPal, right?
Yep.
Like we saw how quickly that changed everything. It went
Actually, no, I grew up collecting from a paper route, and it was all cash.
So. But we grew up seeing the evolution of PayPal.
Yes,
is what I meant.
yes,
I misspoke. But we saw it being from this weird, I'm not dealing with eBay, or I don't need to buy anything off this exchange thing, to okay. I think I bought the most random thing the other day using a PayPal, a running kind of. I got a marathon coming up, and I paid via PayPal because it was just one click. Like, why not? Like that's what we're going to see happen. But we're going to see the back end of that happen using stable coins, because we're just exchanging the same dollars. Like that's all it is.
Yeah, and I mean that already exists. It's just not widely used.
Yeah, I mean that's the craziest thing about it is it's not widely used, and that's. Yep. Someone who deals with payments and still yells at my payment processor for getting hit with random fees. I'm like, you guys are bullshit. Like,
it's an education thing, and it's not even necessarily education, but just like a general understanding thing. A lot of people are afraid of crypto from number one because of the media. That's not where I'm going with this, but a lot of it because of just what they've seen and what they hear about it, and they think anything to do with crypto is scary.
Well, that's why I think it's important to play with it, right? Like,
yeah, totally. Well, we got to use it, but then also because it's they don't get what the technology is. They don't understand how it can have value. They also don't understand how the dollar can have value, but they trust it because the government backs it. Like it's backed by gold, whatever myth that they want to believe. And it's just what they've grown up with that. They just know it. They trust it. Every time they walk into a store, if the price says $4, they hand the guy 4 $1 bills and they walk out with whatever it is. It doesn't matter that $4 price tag used to be 25 cents 10 years ago. They don't see that. They don't give a shit about that. It's what they know. It's what's safe. But like you say, that PayPal thing, that one click, the back end's going to change. It's going to be run on crypto. And until people don't know it's crypto, we're going to have that problem. But as soon as it's just the next payment thing, sure, it's going to run on a blockchain, but they're not going to know or care because it's going to be what's easy and it's going to be what they trust.
Yeah, I mean, guys, this has already happened with JP Morgan. So I mean, they're already doing back of house with their own stablecoin. It's just all internal.
Exactly.
So it's having it public facing, and I imagine there's somewhere we're going to find out probably later this year that it's already being used, and we just don't even know it with God knows what kind of app or something. So it's just one of those weird situations where she may be already out in the wild right now.
Oh yeah, totally. It's just a matter of finding the right people and building that audience, and then starting to get people in, and then once you have that, if that killer app is out there, people start to find it, then that's when the revolution happens and you start seeing the change.
I think a big part of all the adoption of this is going to be the boots on the ground. The people out there educating other people about what cryptocurrencies are, like this podcast, for example, or going to meetups. or, going to different events that really aren't crypto related and talking about crypto, or like me today, walking into my AAA office and ending up having a 45-minute conversation with my agent about cryptocurrencies, because I said, wow, it'd be neat if you guys took crypto for payment, because I'd pay for my insurance with crypto. And it just started this conversation, and the next thing I know, he's like, you said you had a podcast. Let me listen to that. I'm interested to know more. So, it's that boots on the ground adoption and push for spreading information. That's real information, because we don't have really anything to gain or lose by spreading information.
I completely agree. It's amazing how many times I've sat down with someone who either thought I was perpetrating fraud or my clients were perpetrating fraud, and I explained to them, in specifics and language they understood, how each part of the process works, whether it's payments, whether it's supply chain, whether it's privacy, whether it's rights, all these kind of different fun things. Mm-hmm. And it's really exciting to see, somebody grasp something and start to see the use applications, because your experiences are different than my experiences, and so on and so forth. I say this in a lot of things, but there's a Japanese quote that I really like. This is, none of us are smarter than all of us. And so when you put a collective mind and you start, learning new things, you find all of this new ways to interact and change the world. And blockchain is that change when it comes to trust. It's that new, developmental technology, just like the way the internet was. And so once we start being able to build out a better back end of our technology, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more trust. We're going to start seeing, actual news reports that are based on real sources, and you see all these Twitter accounts and things, and I respect people's privacies, and maybe you don't want to be doxxed and stuff like that, but maybe you should at least be verified if you're going to be spouting news sources, especially political news sources, because I see all these, what have to be Russian trolls with Karen 69492939 after their name. And you're just like, I reverse image search the image, and it's some, grandma who died, 10 years ago in Omaha or something. And you're just like, Twitter, what are you doing, man? Like, Jack Dorsey understands this stuff. Why isn't Twitter the most robust, secure, privacy-enabled, identification-enabled platform in the entire world? If that happened, that would change the face of not only trust interactions, but privacy interactions. Because once you know who you're dealing with, once you actually know this is Jonathan Dunsmoor on the line, right? Then you can start doing really kind of cool things when it comes to, scaling internationally and doing, really kind of fun business transactions, right? If I want to buy a piece of property in another country, how the hell do I know this guy's not going to screw me over? Oh, well, it's on a blockchain. This blockchain is verified by their government. As long as I know that government's not going to, hopefully just say, nope, our guy's right, then everything goes through.
Right.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's exactly what we need.
So that kind of brings up an interesting topic. What are your thoughts on actually using a blockchain for verification of identity? And do you think non-fungible tokens play an important role in that?
I do. I'm identity is one of those kind of, it's chicken and egg, right? You want payments, but you also need identity, because for terrorist financing, for child exploitation, illegal drug running, regardless of your stance on drugs, like all of these bad things still exist in the world. We're humans, we're monkeys in clothes. This stuff's not going away. And so if we can build a society in which things kind of operate, and we build systems in which we're able to trust, and I know there's a logical flaw in there that, we're building something imperfect, therefore it's imperfect. But if we can build systems that are close enough to being perfect, meaning they're as perfect as we have in real time, right? So you can identify me because I can open my camera right now and you can see who I am. That looks like the guy. There's no kind of screen imagery. There's no deep fake kind of scenario here because it's real time. That gives you the ability to say, okay, this number or this, call is Jonathan Dunsmoor. That means I can do all kinds of cool things over the internet. Once I have that little NFT that says, this is me, this is my blue check mark, this is whatever you want to give me, right? I can take this to go to the bank. I can go, take out a loan. I can go get a mortgage. I can go vote. I can go, pick up some kid at school. Like the other day I was picking up a nephew and wasn't on the permission slip, so it looked like I was kidnapping a kid. Like, you got to have these kind of things, right? Like, it's one of those situations where you want to know that kid's getting in the right car, because this is an evil world as well. But like, just having that simple, okay, we've got this process, we're able to identify this person, even if it's kind of peer-to-peer based, and then has this weird peer review kind of thing that they're thinking about. Like, just playing around with it, developing this technology is so important. Figuring out how to break it, how to rebuild it, how to put it back together. We're infallible, so some of this stuff is not going to work. We just said that Bitcoin is really great in a lot of ways, but also doesn't work well in a lot of ways. I'm not going to pay for a Snicker bar with it. Like, it's not going to work well. It worked perfectly, but everybody else behind me is going to get pissed while it clears. So like, we've got this awesome opportunity in life right now to really build some solutions that'll probably be around for a while. The internet was created in the 70s, and it took 30 years before it became real mainstream. I don't want to see that happen here, and I don't think that's going to happen here, because we all kind of see the benefit of it. And thanks to the internet, we're able to kind of move things along faster. But yeah, I think NFTs are going to revolutionize this entire world.
Totally. And that's like exactly why, the technology curves are exponential, right? Like, you start building more tools, and then you can use those tools to leverage your next tool, and then it just goes faster and faster and faster. And that's what we're seeing here is the internet is one of those next level tools that's just helping us accelerate just with the communication. And like you said before, that quote about none of us being smarter than all of us, that is exactly that. And as soon as you can put the whole world together, and I know that that's obviously not realistic, the whole people, but as soon as people can start connecting all over the world and collaborating, you have magic that happens compared to just 20 or 30 years ago. Like, even 20 years ago, we didn't have shit for video conferencing or anything. You might have been able to send some text messages over chat rooms, and send videos or pictures or whatever, sort of. But
not really.
We've come a long way in 20 years.
I'm going to tell a quick anecdotal story. I was in Japan this time last year, and this time 10 years ago. And I ran up a $400 phone bill 10 years ago in Japan without realizing it. And now when I travel, I have WhatsApp, I have Telegram, I have 1,000 different apps at this point. It's almost gotten too many to communicate with people almost in real time, if not real time, with video chatting or voice chatting anywhere in the globe. And that's just unheard of. Like you said, it's absolutely unheard of. So 10 years from now, we will have all of this figured out, and I'll be able to vote wherever I am in the world, and be able to buy property wherever I want in the world, and hopefully be able to buy, reliable businesses anywhere I want in the world. And it's just going to be so much more profitable. It's going to be so much more secure. People are going to have such a great, they're going to have such a great life, because we're going to be able to divide and do microtransactions for things like privacy rights, for even your own identity. If I want to tell Google who I am, what my date of birth is, what my race is, what my preference is, all these kind of things, Google should pay me for it. If you want to sell this to advertisers, give me some of the money. And that's going to be really cool to just kind of get a dividend check every quarter, being like, yeah, you guys have some information on me, but I use DuckDuckGo anyway.
Bam! There you go. So are you I got to ask you, it's a little off topic, but are you a Marvel or a DC guy?
I'm definitely a Marvel guy.
Yes.
The DC universe is really, really awesome. But DC in and of itself is just not well put together.
Right.
And Kevin Feige is going to go down as arguably one of the greatest. I don't remember what his exact title is, but whatever he is over there is just incredible. And if DC is ever able to figure out who their person is, and get a real big backing from Sony or somebody, that's when we're going to see some really cool things, because we're monkeys, right? We like competitiveness. And so if Marvel's crushing it, DC's kind of like, oh, we're going to try, but you got to really get into it. And I saw Robert Downey Jr. sign, or not Robert Downey Jr. Jesus, what's his name? Signed up to be Colin Farrell. Signed up to be the Joker, or not the Joker, the Penguin.
Okay.
And so, like, you're starting to get kind of that. All right, let's get that competition back. And once you kind of get those kind of cool rivalry things, then you start really seeing people compete. And that's what I get excited about, because, you know, Coke needs Pepsi and Pepsi needs Coke. It's that kind of, that's a bad analogy, but it's that kind of duality that, you know, really kind of makes things interesting.
I think it's a perfect analogy, right?
It is. Actually, it totally is.
Yeah, you gotta have competition, or how are you going to improve?
Right. Exactly. I think
without competition, we all get complacent.
Yeah, I just think that Coke's got a really unfair market share. Coke, you can find a Coke in the goddamn Zimbabwe jungle, I swear to God.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we're talking about people who
today.
understand supply chain and probably understand payments better than anybody. It's Coca-Cola.
Right.
And why they aren't, you know, messing with blockchain, and why aren't they figuring out how to do all their supply chains and stuff like that yet? Because they don't need to, because they've got it figured out.
So if you're a Marvel guy, then who's your favorite character?
That's a good question. I am not sure I can honestly pick one. I'm a huge fan, and this sounds cliche, but I'm a huge fan of Iron Man, because he's just a rich guy, right? And rich
the
guy.
Playboy.
Well, but that's attainable. You know, if
right.
But that also is like once again, kind of like the libertarian, kind of like liberal in me. Like, you should never be that rich that you can become a superpower. And that's kind of what he did, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, he's super intelligent, but like, we've all seen that, you know, if you have unlimited resources, you have that kind of weird dichotomy in life, and as well as in everything else, where you could do something really good with it, or you could do absolutely nothing. You know, if you're really rich and you don't have a care in the world, and you have no purpose in life, you can go, you know, bury your face in a pound of cocaine and nobody cares because everything's paid for. Or you could, you know, be a Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man-esque person, and you know, try to, you know, do really cool things and go around and be Iron Man and help small kids and
save the world.
Yeah, show up and save the world. So
right.
I have a fondness for Iron Man, but there's something awesome about being able to be so mad as hell as Hulk and just be like, we have a Hulk, you know what I mean? Like, that's just an awesome line. But
all I can say is one day I'll grow up to be Iron Man. Just you watch.
That is a noble goal, sir. That is a noble goal.
I mean, Batman's kind of the same thing, right? Just a rich dude with a whole bunch of fucking tech.
That's what it boils down to. Is if you're rich enough, you become a superhuman. So, you know, we should probably tax rich people a little bit more in this country, because that would probably help some things. But yeah, for the most part,
I mean, it's not unreal. I mean, that's true. Like in the real world too. It's not just in the movies, right? Like, yeah, it's crazy. These people get shit tons of money, and not only power from the influence of the money, but you can literally manufacture physical power. You know, I mean, there are Iron Man suits sort of kind of right now in existence, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can put shit tons of fucking money at all sorts of crazy stuff, and you make your own power.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, my biggest argument for when people, you know, oh, we shouldn't tax people, rich people don't have preferences and all that stuff. And I say, well, I can, you know, there's people that can buy any type of citizenship they want. Almost every country in the world has a, you know, I can't remember what it's called in the U.S. It's not an EB-5, but it's kind of like an EB-5, where, you know, you simply just pay a fee and you become a citizen. There's no ifs, ands, buts. There's no building a business. There's no nothing. You pay a fee, and guess what? Here's your passport. Here's, you know, whatever you need. So when you start, or when you reach that, and that's not really that high. It's only, you know, generally a couple $100,000, possibly $1 million, depending on where you're at. Like, that's a low level of worth before you start really kind of changing the world. And so that's one of the also things about blockchain that really excites me, because, you know, us as Americans, while we are very entrepreneurial and very, we like to believe we're very entrepreneurial, but, you know, we like to get out there and get after it. There's a lot of really innovative people outside of this country. And so if we can throw a little bit of our money $10, $20, $40,000 their way, and start seeing the exponential returns on that, that's where we start really doing some cool things. Because not only are you, possibly changing the economic course of a country, but you're also really kind of changing the economic course of the people in that country. And that's just, as a human being, pretty awesome when you're making other people's lives better. Because, instead of donating, $10,000 or whatever, you invested $10,000, and now you've created, 20,000 jobs or 20 jobs, and, they're actually creating a business, right? Like they've got an actual business up and running, and that's something that's really cool.
So Jonathan, let me ask you this. Have you seen the seed movement?
The seed movement? No.
Okay, so there's a thing that started up a little while back, and a friend of ours, Red Cat Life, used to plant these seeds all over the place. And what a seed card is it's basically just like a business card size piece of paper, and it says be your own bank on it, right? And it's got QR codes on it. Let you scan the QR code to learn about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin. And this thing has really blossomed and grown into this big deal and this big thing. And I don't know if you're familiar with Change Angel at all, but so what they did is they actually created this map, this seed map, and it's an interactive map. And if you go to changeangel.io, you can see this map there and see all of the cards that have been planted, all the seeds that have been planted throughout the world. And it's really neat. And I like to turn people to this and let them see what these communities and the boots on the ground are doing for the spread of adoption of cryptocurrencies, because it's that grassroots way of doing stuff, there's a lot of people that are maximalists and say, oh, you can't spend your Bitcoin. And you know what? I'm not a maximalist. I'm into crypto and I believe in crypto. But I also believe that the only way to really get the ecosystem working is to get out there and make it happen and spread the word and actually use it and get it into the ecosystem. So if you're going to go spend $200 on something, why not buy $200 worth of crypto and use that crypto to make the purchase if you can, kind of a thing.
Yeah, this is very fascinating. I'm playing with the map right now.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah, one of the things I do, especially when I go to bigger, what are these things called? Crypto conferences.
Yes.
They've always got generally some exchange there. And up in Toronto, most recently, was the one that they had a bunch of, you sign up, you get $10 and free Bitcoin or Ethereum or something. And I took a stack of them. The guy there didn't remember me from last year, but the guy last year gave me like 500 of them. But I started tearing them up and opening them and stuff like that. He was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I give these to all my Uber drivers and bartenders and all that other kind of stuff." And it's amazing
I love it.
What happens when you are in an Uber, or you're talking to a bartender, or your servers, anybody you're interacting with, especially in a new city, right? Because you generally are out more. Who are like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of this. I've this is cool. I've always wanted to learn about it, or I never knew anybody who was in it, or it's right. Not necessarily taboo, but it's not one of the things that, unless you're into crypto, you run around talking about how into crypto you are. And so it's really cool to see their interactions with people, and some of them are like, "Yeah, thanks man, like I'm never going to use this," you can tell, but for the most part there's a lot of real interest in it because people have heard about it at this point.
And it's funny because the ones that say that now, within 5 years, will be kicking themselves going, "Shit,
yeah,
he had an opportunity. I should have listened to him." Exactly.
And we've had some really good conversations in Ubers, though. I mean, like in LA alone at CIS, we had like so many crazy interactions. Like everybody we talked to, I think there was one, or was that in Vegas? It might have been in Vegas. One of the two events, there was only one person that didn't get like super excited about what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to talk to these people that are like, "Yeah, I have family back in this country and I send them money, but it cost me, $15 to send them $500. And, that's another good use case of crypto, is sending money like that. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit less when it gets there, but or sometimes it gains. But and then what was the other one, Mitch, the guy that worked at Nike?
Oh yeah, he was in the marketing for Nike at one point, wasn't he?
He is actually working for marketing for Nike in the marketing department right now, or at least when we talked to him when he was.
Yeah.
And he was telling us a story about getting into Bitcoin at once and got hacked or something like that. I think it was that guy, and had a bad taste about it, and then thought it was all about the mafia and all that kind of crap, and then was finally starting to go, okay, well, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Maybe it's a real thing, and I haven't seen the whole picture. And when their eyes like change a little bit, and you can tell it in their voice. We've actually live streamed a few of these interactions on Twitter, but you can hear it in their voice, and they get excited, and it's almost like a little bit of hope forms. Like maybe this isn't all we have for payment systems. I mean, maybe we don't have to be fucked by the system continuously, and that's a cool thing.
It is a really cool thing.
Before we wrap up here, I got one more question for you.
All right.
So you have to pick a movie.
Okay.
And you can keep one actor or actress in the movie, but everybody else is Muppets. Which movie is it?
So it would have to be Van Wilder, and I would, of course, keep Ryan Reynolds, and then I would have everybody else be Muppets.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. That was a great, quick answer. Oh my God, you're amazing.
I didn't prepare for that. They didn't give me the answer beforehand. But yeah, no,
we're gonna have to talk to Rebecca. I think it's really.
Yeah, she didn't feed me that. I promise. That would definitely be it. I think actually we should pitch that to him and see if he'll do a redo. Yeah,
that's a great idea. I think he would be perfect. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if he's already done one with the Muppets. He might be in a movie with the Muppets.
Right.
I was going to say any movie with Nicolas Cage. I think that would be so uncomfortable that it would just be amusing.
I think so too. I would pay to see that.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
60 seconds with all Muppets except for Nicolas Cage.
With all Muppets, yeah. Or something like what was the Ghost Rider with all Muppets, but him as Ghost Rider.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like what the hell did I enter?
I was thinking something like that. The Transporter. That would be cool.
There you go.
That'd be real with Jason Statham.
Yeah, keep Jason Statham and everybody else Muppets.
That'd be awesome.
What about this? Jason Statham is a Muppet, but his girlfriend in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
I could get behind that. I could.
Yeah, definitely.
That almost sounds like we're going down a weird rabbit hole.
Yeah. That's where you get different kind of listeners, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
On that note. Oh, this was a great podcast. Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's really been a pleasure talking with you again. I look forward to seeing you in Memphis. That'll be cool. I'm getting excited about going to that.
Yeah, guys. I'm really pumped up about this year. I think there's going to be a lot of really great things accomplished. I think we left 2019 and everybody's kind of like, it was a tough year. We got some things done, but it's still not enough. And so I'm hoping 2020 is the year that we really kind of knock it out of the park. And
but you know what? We're still here.
We are, and that's the most important
battle.
Thing. Yeah, that's winning the battle and endurance is absolutely critical in this stuff, especially when we're going against incumbents like Visa and
Right. Well, if you quit, you can't win.
That's true.
It's just it. All right, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure.
No, guys, thank you for having me. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Definitely, man. We'll talk to you soon.
You too. Bye.
Well, guys, this was a great podcast. I don't know, Professor, what'd you think? I had a lot of fun talking to Jonathan. That was awesome.
Yeah, I had a great time, and it was really cool to get a little bit deeper with him on some of the topics. We only had like 10 minutes with him in Los Angeles, so that was definitely awesome. And his answer to the Muppet question came rather quickly, and I really, really am suspicious.
Suspicious? Yeah. How did he get that quick? That was crazy.
How did he get that? But whatever. I mean, it was a good one. I think that. Can you imagine being just surrounded by Muppets?
I can't, especially Miss Piggy. That would drive me nuts.
Just a whole sea of Miss Piggy clones. Oh gosh, the nightmares. Close this out. End the nightmares.
All right, let's do it. Guys, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Really enjoyed talking with Jonathan. We're glad you guys are here. If you get a chance, check out your nearest coin flip ATMs. Coin flip is the easiest way to put money into cryptocurrencies. And if you have somebody that you're trying to show them how cryptocurrencies work, the ATM is actually the easiest way to do so. So if you're around a coin flip ATM, check them out.
100%. And it's really cool to watch people's face when they don't, you take a family member to the crypto ATM and they don't really get the concept of like, they still don't really believe it's money. And then you send the transaction from your Bitcoin wallet and it comes out as cash. And they're just like, what? Holy shit. It really does work.
Yeah.
And then they're hooked and that's it. So yeah, get your friends, get your family into it. There's a map on coinflip.tech. You can check out and see where any locations are near you. If you don't see one, go talk to your local stores and business owners and see if there's anybody who wants to put one in their business. They'll pay you to do it. And it's a great way to help spread the word about adoption and getting crypto out there. That's
right. And this is not financial advice.
Or is
quick disclaimer there. Or
is
it
financial advice?
Right. All right, guys. Have yourself a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Take it easy.
Peace.